interpreting machine. An interpreting machine. You interpret everything that happens to you and everything you see. And what that means is that you decide what it means. You give it meaning. And you're giving meaning to everything. And it doesn't actually have that meaning necessarily. And maybe like me, you have heard people like Tony Robbins and Harv Eker and Jim Fortin say these words: nothing has any meaning except the meaning you give it. And what that means is that you give meaning to everything. So, we're not talking about like definitions of words, although somebody could say something to you and you interpret it a certain way and give it meaning. So your partner says something to you angrily, and you interpret that to mean that you've done something wrong, or he or she are angry at you. May totally not be true. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But let's say you lose a job, or let's just stick with the job. You lose a job, and you interpret that to mean that your boss didn't think you were good enough at your job. And you walk away and give that interpretation, that meaning, so much power over yourself. You decide that's who you are, somebody who doesn't do a good enough job, isn't skilled enough, isn't knowledgeable enough, right? And that impacts everything you do when it comes to looking for a new job. Maybe your marriage fails, and you interpret that to mean that you're not worthy of a relationship, of a loving relationship. But maybe the likelihood is the person left because of something totally to do with them, not with you. That's why we always say, what somebody thinks of you is none of your business, because it's about them. It's not about you. You make it about you because that's how you interpret it. That's the meaning you give it, is that it has something to do with you. The same can be said of saying that something is good, something is bad, something is right, something is wrong. This candidate is better than the other candidate. This is you interpreting and giving something meaning. When we interpret, that's what we do. We give something meaning. And it may not be, the likelihood is it's not based on any fact other than what you're feeling, what you're thinking, your past history, how you feel about yourself, all those things. It's an internal interpretation and giving of meaning to something. That's why so often, you'll hear spiritual people say nothing's good or bad. But the fact is, in the personal growth world, it's the same. Nothing's good or bad, because that's an interpretation. It's a meaning you give it. You give it the meaning that this is bad, this is good, this is right, this is wrong. And our need to prove that what we have interpreted is the truth creates the majority of our problems. It really does, especially in relationships. You can say the same about should or shouldn't. It's an interpretation. So your parents told you you should become a doctor. That was just their interpretation of the meaning they gave to your future, right? To your future career, when in fact there is no should or shouldn't. It's an interpretation. So in I can't remember which branch of psychology it is, but I think it's applied psychology. In applied psychology, there's an exercise that's often given where you to help you change the meaning behind things. And I found this really useful, for instance, in my relationship with my husband, but also in my career. So what you do is, when something happens and you interpret it a certain way, and maybe you habitually interpret a certain way. So like with my husband, when he was angry, I always interpreted it to mean that it was something I had done. He was angry at me for something I had done. And so I began using this exercise, which is to give something a different meaning. 7 times. You give it a different meaning 7 times. So when my husband would be angry, I would say to myself, okay, so I know that I right now am interpreting his anger to mean I've done something wrong to make him angry, or that he's choosing to be angry about. But what else could it mean? And I think, well, maybe it means that he had a bad day, or maybe he's just tired, or maybe he's worried about money, or maybe he somebody just told him something on the phone, or he read an email that was upsetting to him. And so by the time I would do all this, make all these new interpretations, give his behavior and his emotions new meaning, I would realize that there was a high likelihood that his anger had nothing to do with me. And then I could give the situation a different meaning. Oh, he's angry, and that has nothing to do with me. It does not mean that he's angry at me or I've done something wrong. I reinterpret it. And you can do that with anything. You can do that with the loss of a job. You can do that with a rejection from a literary agent. You can do it, with a friend who ghosts you, any number of things. So on a bigger note, this is really important. It's important to remember that nothing has any meaning except the meaning you give it. When you start thinking about things like, what's the meaning of life, or what's the meaning of my life? Because it's very easy to go, kind of hog wild down the negative path, and start saying there's no meaning to life, or what my experiences have shown me is that the universe doesn't have my back, and life sucks, and life is unfair, and these are all interpretations. It's the meaning you're giving to your life experiences. And it's the same about your life. To say, if you start saying, my life is meaningless, my experiences that life has been unfair, these are your interpretations. You're giving meaning to your circumstances, and you can look at this from every aspect of your life: the meaning of your career, of your wealth status, of your relationships, of your experiences in general, of your health. You can give it all kinds of meaning, right? And we automatically do that. But these meanings are just an illusion created by the mind's desire to interpret everything. Or not the mind, the brain. The brain's desire to interpret everything. And you have a choice. You can stand in your power, in your personal power, and exercise your personal freedom and ask yourself, what meaning do I want to give these things? So I got fired from my job. Do I want it to mean that I wasn't good enough for that job? That my skills were not up to par? Or do I want it to mean that this is a sign I'm supposed to be doing something else, or that there's a better job out there for me, right? So you get to choose the meaning, and you can change the quality of any one of your experiences simply by changing the meaning that you give it. Just because you don't have a lot of money in the bank right now doesn't mean you're bad at making money, unless you make it mean that. It could mean, oh, I need to exercise my ability to save more money, put more money away every month. I need to be that kind of person. It can just be a learning experience for you and a choice to make. Just means I haven't been saving enough. Doesn't mean I'm bad at money or managing money. So do you want to give something a different meaning, a new meaning? And how would that impact your life? Imagine that for a minute. If you took your circumstances, your experiences, and you gave all of them a positive meaning. You interpreted them, we reinterpreted them in a positive light and gave them positive meaning. How would that impact how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your life, how you feel about the people in your life, your work, all of that? Make a huge difference, would it not? Yeah, it would change everything. And you have that ability to simply reinterpret and give new meaning to everything from who you're being, to your life, to your past experiences, to your current circumstances, all of it. Totally within your power. So I want to encourage you to use the exercise that I described from applied psychology. And when something happens, come up with 7 new meanings for it. Interpret it to mean something different 7 times and see how that doesn't shift how you are, shift you out of your old interpretations, your habitual meanings that you give things. And number 2, I want to challenge you to begin giving things new meaning. Your your past, for sure, your past. So your past experiences, all of that, give it new meaning. And your current circumstances, give that new meaning. So I can tell you that I went through a large part of my life believing that I couldn't be a novelist, because when I told my mother when I was in high school that I wanted to be a novelist, she said to me, Nina, only really, really good writers can make a living as a novelist. And I took that to mean at the time that I wasn't a good enough writer to do that. Later, with some therapy and some coaching and some introspection, I realized that she wasn't making a comment about my writing ability. She was making a comment based on her desire for me to be able to support myself. And she didn't think being a novelist was a way to do that. She didn't have a problem with me when I decided to go to journalism school. That was fine. She didn't balk at that at all. So it really had more to do with her concern over me being able to earn a living. And she probably had interpreted being a novelist as, being a starving writer. And so that wasn't okay. But being a journalist meant you were working for a magazine or a newspaper, and that was okay. And so I was able to switch that and stop giving her words the meaning that, about myself, that I was somehow deficient as a writer and couldn't make a living as a writer. I flipped that into, oh, she was just, what her words meant were concern for me. I want you to be able to make a living as a writer. And that shifted then the meaning I gave to her comments related to myself. It wasn't that I wasn't a good enough writer at all. So that was an opportunity for me to just reinterpret a situation that had happened, an experience I had, a conversation I had, and not make it mean anything about me, make it mean more about her. She just was concerned. She couldn't see the potential, the possibility of me making a living as a novelist. But it didn't mean anything about me. And I could reinterpret this to mean something about her. So this is your opportunity and your challenge to reinterpret and give some of these past experiences new meaning, and to look at your life and yourself and your circumstances and give them new meaning as well. Okay, so that's my challenge to you. If you don't know who I am, if you're new to me, I am Nina Amir, the Inspiration to Creation Coach, and I help people get from where they are to where they want to go. I do that with personal and spiritual growth coaching. I'm a transformational coach and a certified high performance coach. And I always talk about the fact that you are a creator, and that that you can create whatever it is you desire. You can follow your spiritual guidance because you're a spiritual being having human experience, and learn to take action and create what really matters to you. So if any of that interests you, click on the link above, which tells you the 3 ways you can work with me. And if you want to chat about that, there's another link up above to have a talk with me, to schedule a session, and we'll have a brief talk about whether or not we're a good fit and what kind of coaching would be best for you, or what programs I have that would be good for you. And we'll go from there. So that's it for today. Until I talk to you next time, go out there and achieve more inspired results.